Hello and welcome to Soul Talk with Rabbi David Aaron and Leora Mandel. Rabbi Aaron, human emotions are a part of the human experience. And I think most people would say there's certain emotions which are positive and feel good, and certain emotions which are negative and don't feel good. And yet, as human beings, we still struggle with them. And one of those emotions is jealousy. The question I have is that jealousy is obviously a big one because if you look at the Ten Commandments, the last of the Ten Commandments is dealing with don't be jealous, don't desire from a jealous state what your neighbor has. And we're told not to indulge in that emotion. The question is, why is that one so bad? And as much as we're told not to do it, how as human beings can we help ourselves from what almost seems like a natural feeling that can come up of jealousy?
Right. Well, we see from the Torah that jealousy is a very dangerous force because in the story of Cain and Abel, Cain brought a sacrifice. It was his idea, and Abel followed suit, and he brought a different kind of sacrifice, but it was of higher quality. And God turned to Abel and accepted his. And Cain was angry and jealous of his brother and killed him. Jealousy could be that dangerous in terms of motivating something like that. So it's clearly the question is, what is the root of jealousy? I think the root of jealousy is we all desire greatness. And we are challenged when we witness other people succeeding in that greatness. And rather than reaching out to them and asking them, how did you do it? Humbly inviting their guidance so that you can achieve your greatness. We go the other way and we just try and get rid of the one that's making me feel less great because they're so great. It doesn't work in the end. It doesn't work. And the question is, goes it's what's firing off in our minds. What are we saying to ourselves when we witness somebody else succeeding at what they're succeeding at? And what do we have to say? We have to do what is being referred to. The term I heard is verbal judo. You have to talk to yourself and talk yourself out of, this. And one of the things you have to say is, listen, this is their portion, this is my portion, this is their mission, this is my mission. And it starts with comparing. And if we realize, we have a saying about God, we say, Mi chamocha be'elim Hashem, who is like you, God? We're creating the image of God, which means that nobody is like me. I am completely unique. And yet somehow we think there's some place for comparison. It's like comparing an apple to a radio. Like, imagine an apple is jealous of the radio's ability to channel music, and I can't do that. Or the radio is jealous of the apple that it can provide nutrition. I can't do that. You don't want to do that. You're not meant to do that. That's not who you are. And I think it goes back to this sad situation where people, like just be who you are because everybody else is taken.
Oh, that's great. So you're sharing in a sense that jealousy comes from this root of desire for greatness, which there's a good aspect to that of wanting to be better, wanting to be more. But it sounds like we're taking it in a negative course of instead of striving for something better, indulging in jealousy. But the question I have is that jealousy hurts me even if I don't share it with somebody else. It's like an internal rot that continues to develop the longer it sits in me. Whereas if I would actually be inspired by somebody else to say, "Oh, he has such a fantastic marriage. I want to have a better marriage. I'm going to work on it." Or, "Wow, if it's something material, he's managed to buy a beautiful house. I got to work harder so I can afford to have a beautiful house, and let's make it really nice and have lots of guests." But even though that would be the route that would be the positive version of this, and jealousy ultimately just hurts me. Why is it that that direction seems like it's the way we often go, and it's so much harder to channel it towards the positive?
Well, unfortunately, I don't have a deep answer other than we take the easy way out. We want something quick and easy. And so we are witnessing somebody succeeding at what they're doing. And rather than being inspired by their success and try and do what I'm doing in the best way I can, I feel challenged by their success. I feel jealous of their success. and I look for ways to putting them down. It's the same principle as what's called lashon hara, speaking gossip or derogatory about other people. It's rather than lifting yourself up, you put other people down. I don't feel good about myself, so rather than feeling better about myself, I try to make people, or I try to frame people as being much less than me. It's an easy chicken way out to really do the job you need to do to get moving. And in our tradition, there's something called kinat sofrim, which is that it's a good thing to be jealous of somebody's education. A Torah scholar or somebody is educated, and I want it. But that if the jealousy is this feeling like, wow, I really want to do that. And I don't want to take from them what they have, and I don't want to see them lose what they have, but I want to take what I'm witnessing they have to inspire me and motivate me to achieve what I could have. That's a positive thing. That's a positive thing. But again, that takes work, takes persistence. It takes a genuine willingness to invest and patience to get there. There was a story, it's a famous story about an Olympic skater who was competing in the Olympics against another woman skater. And the brothers of this Olympic skater broke the legs of her competitor so that she would win. I mean, that's what you do to win. You're not really winning. People can do the most ridiculous things because they're jealous and they're challenged. And it all comes from, I want to feel good about myself. And so rather than opting for real strategies of how to feel good about myself, and what is a real strategy feel good about myself, is to do good. When you do good, you feel good. Most people are interested in looking good because they think looking good is going to make them feel good, but maybe for a little bit, but not long term. And if I see somebody doing something good, I shouldn't be jealous of it. I should be inspired and motivated by it.
So, in a sense, some of this takes a certain amount of self awareness to one recognize at the moment I'm having a jealous thought. And then what I should do to follow that up is sounds like the idea of saying, this is my mission. They have a different mission. So, I mean, I have to talk to myself and almost counter that thought. And another way to counter it is also say, well, I'm jealous of this, but what can I do in my life to try to have more of that for me? Not just like use it as
Now,
inspiration.
that's an important point. What's the first step to do when you get into that negative state of mind and that negative chatter goes off in your head? Ask a question. Questions can kind of stop that flow and say, well, why am I jealous? So now you got to get into a conversation with whoever in you said why, and you say, well, because they have more than you. Are you so sure they have more than you? Most people don't realize it's a package deal. Like, yeah, maybe they've got a great job, but maybe they have a lousy home life. Maybe they've got a great build, but maybe they don't have a great job. I mean, people don't realize that if you're going to compare yourself to somebody, then you have to compare yourself to them in the most total way, who they are, family wise, career wise, health wise. And then you'll realize if you had all the facts that you don't want to be them and they're not going to want to be you. And you're just looking at a very narrow segment of their life, and you're jealous of that when it's nested within a huge story that you don't even know what that story is. And so it's important that people should mind their own business. I heard it well put. There's your business, my business, and God's business. And you have to ask yourself, in this situation, whose business is this? And most of the time, when it comes to jealousy, it's God's business. God has given this person whatever talents they have. You didn't get those talents. And if you think you do have those talents, then work hard to nurture them and go ahead.
So that brings me to that question is out of all negative traits, and there are others, this is definitely not a good one and it doesn't help us very well, but this one made it into the Ten Commandments. Any thought as to why this, and it's the completion of the Ten Commandments, it's the 10th of the commandments.
Well, it goes back. It is the root of all problems when a person doesn't accept who they are and doesn't respect who they are and is constantly looking at other people as their measuring stick for who they should be. That's a very dangerous recipe right there. And it's also a lack of trust in God and faith in God. Like I've been given this and he's been given that. And I have to just trust that what I have is what I need and what he has is what he needs. And if I want to upgrade my life, then I have every right to try. But I think it really is a problem that so easily can get out of hand as it did in the Cain and Abel story.
Mm. What's so interesting is you're bringing out another point that, in a sense, that when I express jealousy about so what someone else has, to a degree, if we go deeper, it's really almost like a claim against God to a degree. It could be like, God, you gave this person this life situation. Why didn't you give it to me? And it's almost like a question against God if it's not going to be an inspiration of, wow, I want to try to work harder at being a calm person because I'm inspired that this person seems so calm under pressure. Meaning, if it's not being inspiration, it's almost like this, God, why didn't you give me a calmer disposition? Why didn't you give me an ability to make more money? Why didn't you give me a nice, help me pick a nicer wife? Whatever it is, so that it becomes much deeper.
Well, that's what our sages teach us. Mi ashir samech bechalko, who is truly rich, one who is happy with their portion. And riches is not having a lot; it's appreciating what you have. And and you're right; it is. It really flies in the face of trusting God and believing that God has a plan. And if these are the cards I'm being dealt, then this is the game I can play and win at. And I think, it's all about having healthy beliefs. And I think that's one of the most healthy beliefs that a person needs to, include in their beliefs folder. It's like what I have is what I need. It's actually a blessing that we make every morning. Shasali kol tzarki. Blessed be you, God. May there be an increased manifestation of you as the one who gave me everything I need. And there was a great leader that once said, you can't always get what you want, but you can get what you need. I was just joking. I don't know if he's really a great leader, but it was Michael Jackson from the Rolling Stones. And, you get what you need, and you might not get what you want, but you will get what you need. And there was one Hasidic Rebbe that said, I never needed anything because if I didn't have it, then obviously I didn't need it. And that's a fabulous attitude it's a winning attitude to have.
Hmm. This conversation is reminding me about another conversation that we've had where I believe the question I asked you is, how do I know what my life's purpose is? Everyone has a particular mission. And one of the things you shared was that we're all given a toolbox. And if you're given a toolbox and you look at the tools that you have, one person has a hammer and it gives them a sign, oh, I should be building. Another person has a computer, and obviously that's a very different kind of job. And another person has paintbrushes. Meaning the idea is when I look at the skills and the talents or the package, so to speak, that I have gives me some insight into what my personal mission is. Those are the things I'm supposed to use. So all of a sudden I'm connecting that to this, and in a sense, if I'm jealous of somebody else, why did they get that toolbox and I have this toolbox? Well, I'm going to be spending a good part of my life not actually being the person I can become, living my mission, because I'm looking at what someone else's mission might be and I'm wishing it could be mine, but therefore I'm not living mine.
Right. I once shared, really, we have one choice and everything else is a variation of that choice, either to portray or to betray who you really are. And jealousy is betraying who you are. Again, if you're a doctor and you're jealous of another doctor, and that jealousy motivates you to work harder and not to put him down, but to lift yourself up, okay, that's a good use of jealousy. But often that's not the way jealousy is working, and it's a self-betrayal. I don't accept who I am. I'm betraying God because I don't believe that the tools he gave me are the tools that I need or the tools that are best suited for who I am, or they're the true elements of my ultimate happiness. And somehow I think I know better than God what will make me happy. and he gave me tools that won't make me happy.
Oof.
I have a friend, he's a hairdresser, and he said to me, he said, God messed up. People who have straight hair want curly hair. People who have curly hair want straight hair. People who have blonde hair want black hair, and people who have black hair want blonde hair. God messed up big time. So I think we have to work on looking at the gifts that we have, recognizing that they are gifts, and believing that God is absolutely interested in us living the best life we can and has given us all the ingredients for that.
In a sense, when we first started this conversation, I'm thinking of jealousy as a human to human issue, man to man, person to person, interpersonal. But what you're helping me understand is that really the root of jealousy is a person to God issue. It really is, there's a root of something that's missing in my relationship with God and my connection to God and my understanding of what God's purpose is for me. And if I would clear that up, it's likely I wouldn't even have that feeling of jealousy because I'd be so clear about where I'm supposed to be doing in my life. I wouldn't be so what that someone else is doing something different. It's a different, their life is different, their mission is different. It wouldn't affect me as much.
It goes back to trust. It's all about, do I trust that there's a higher power? I've shared this before. If you look at your finger and you realize whoever designed that piece of amazing engineering has engineered this and this and this and this. And so I have good reasons to believe that God knows what he's doing and that he's got infinite wisdom and that there's a infinite wisdom, the divine wisdom that is running the show, knows what I need, knows where to put me in what scene, knows who to surround me with in terms of my co-actors. And I should stop looking at what other people are doing and, so to speak, mind my own business and do my job. And that's where you'll find your joy.
Is this change in perspective? Is this an example of where a change in perspective can actually help a person change their struggle? Or do you think that there's times where I may get some clarity in my head, but I still find myself struggling with the emotion?
Well, it goes back to, emotions are generated by thoughts. If I think somebody is outside waiting to hurt me, then I'm just going to break into a cold sweat and my heart's going to start beating fast. And all that was because of a thought. Question is, how do I battle that thought? And the first question is, well, how do you know that there's somebody out there waiting for you? What is that based on? And when you question the thought, you start to neutralize it and you start to take some of its power away from it because you've questioned it. And an unquestioned assumption is what's driving us crazy. And so, but if we're still feeling the emotions, it means we haven't gotten to the root of the emotions, which is the thought that I'm thinking that's making me feel this way, or the interpretation that I'm giving. If I set up to meet my friend at 8 o'clock, at the restaurant, and he doesn't show up, so I think, what a jerk! He doesn't respect my time. I get angry. Or I could say, oh my gosh, something must have happened to him. He must have been in an accident, and I get scared and worried. Or I can say, probably big traffic, then he's on his way because he always honors my time. And I'm sure he's okay. It's just, and then they feel calm. It's what you say to yourself. Our life is literally being controlled by the interpretations we're giving to the events that we're encountering.
So then what it really comes down to is when I'm aware, it gets the question is the chicken and the egg. If I am more aware of my feelings and they're unpleasant, start thinking, what am I thinking? If I become aware of what my negative thinking is or my problematic thinking is, then I will understand why I'm struggling still with certain emotions. But the root of it comes down to thinking.
Right. If I'm feeling stressed out, I have to ask myself, what am I thinking about that is stressing me out? What thoughts? If a person would not be stressed out if they were thinking about, the birth of their child, which would be the most joyous, one of the most joyous moments in your life. They wouldn't be stressed out. They would be filled with joy. So I think a person it would be helpful if you had a list of happy thoughts that you could turn to, that when you're in these stress moments, hey, let me remember that moment in my life and juice that moment and allow that moment, that thinking about that a moment, that imagining yourself back in that a moment will generate those emotions again.
Hmm. Wow. So really, Rabbi Aaron, with this topic, I think it's an emotion, and yet we're going into understanding that it really has to do with deeper thinking, and that's where the fix is of this challenge. We think of it as something between human beings, but the root cause is really something where I have to examine where's my relationship with God. And I now understand the depth of this because of how it can affect our lives so much. But what was so illuminating in our conversation here is that I think a lot of times when we think of jealousy, we don't necessarily realize the root is a thought and the root is our relationship with God. And having that clarity really enables us to have the tools we need to be able to be inspired by people instead of feeling jealous of them. I want to thank you all for joining us. Soul Talk, Rabbi David Aaron and Leora Mandel.